Welcome to a session entitled Too Dark, Too Smart. We're going to talk about why it's titled that, and we're also going to talk about what we really wanted to call it. But first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Kathryn Burnett, and I'm a screenwriter and a playwright and a script consultant person, and I come from New Zealand. And I'm going to hand over to Fiona Samuel, who is my co-presenter. So introduce yourself.
I'm Fiona Samuel. I'm a playwright and a screenwriter, and formerly an actor, and also now a director. We call them slashies, jobs, people who do a lot of jobs. I'm from New Zealand too. We've come from the ends of the earth to be here with you, and we are so thrilled, and thank you for having us.
Thank you. Okay, you guys are super cute. Thank you so much. Also, I want to apologize in advance if I start speaking too quickly. Someone just stand up and do that, because I speak really quickly. Fiona less so, because she's classically trained. But I will just start gabbling. So if that happens, just someone, wave, make a rude gesture or something, and I will calm down. But so this session is, it's really fun with a serious undertone, I think. The idea of why we even have to talk about female characters in 2018 blows my mind. Why are we even discussing this? It seems crazy that we have to have this discussion. And I think particularly in the wake of the Me Too movement and also all of the discussion around gender parity that's occurred at this conference and that is happening worldwide clearly, it seems almost quaint that we're talking about good versus bad or positive versus negative female characters. But Fiona and I are both of the opinion that there just seems to be an entrenched habit of thin, not very good female characters.
There's a thing called the patriarchy. It's really that simple.
But it's become a habit, and we're so used to it. And I think there's been loads of great female characters that have emerged, particularly on television, who have been wonderful and strong. But there seems to me to be, particularly in film, a lot of characters that are not. And it's a conversation I think we have to keep having. I'm also really aware that obviously not all perpetrators or creators of terrible female characters are men. It is simply not true. As we will talk about our stories, you will understand and know, and you guys will have experienced it, that there's all sorts of pressures on you as a writer about what you do and how you portray people, which we will get into.
We'd also like to tell you the real title of our session. It's not printed in the program, but we've noticed that people have been swearing, and we're New Zealanders, so we go along with what our hosts do. We like to fit right in. So the real name of our session is 10 Ways to Fuck Up Your Female Characters.
And we're really going to take that approach. We're going to take you through our 10 favourite ways. Please take notes.
Yes, do. Get your pens out.
I'm sure you would love to do this. And I am just going to jump straight in to you, Fiona. Jump in. We've both got 5 points each, and we'll make our way through. If we've got time, we'll have Q&A at the end. And yeah, jump on in.
Okay, here is my first one. This is fail-safe. Please the gatekeepers. That is the first way in which you can fuck up your female characters. Amazingly enough, in the 21st century, gatekeepers do tend to be male, whether they're studio execs or network execs or heads of content or whatever. You'll usually find that you can go up the ladder to a certain point, and then there is a man making a decision, and they think like men. God love you, them. So even when the main characters in your project are female and the writers are female, maybe even the director is female, so you would think there would be a delicious loop of female. No, you will reach that point where there is a man making a decision and they see things from their point of view and they like things to be a certain way. I would just like to illustrate this with an example. It's a scene I call Blowjob in a Car. Spoiler alert. That's how it ends. We don't actually see this because it is for network television. It's an 8:30 show. This is a real show that has actually already screened in the world. I won't tell you where. So that's where the action and the dialogue in the scene are going. There are two characters in the scene. One is a lawyer in his late 20s. He's married, but he's having a little something extra on the side with the 17-year-old daughter of a senior partner in his law firm, and he has knocked the 17-year-old up. Whoops. She is in love with him, and she wants to believe that he will leave his wife for her, and they will go to Paris, and they'll have the baby, and their lives will be wonderful. And at the moment, her life is not wonderful because she's incarcerated in a home for wayward girls, and she spends her days studying, doing menial work, and wearing an ugly smock as she gets ever larger. He goes about his life much as usual in his nice house with his nice wife, and his work life is interrupted, and he's not putting on any weight or experiencing hormonal fluctuations. And he knows that there is no way he is leaving his nice life to go to Paris with a delusional teenager, but he won't tell her that in case she blows everything wide open. He's just biding his time and playing nice. So she sneaks away from the home so that they can meet during the lunch hour. He drives her to a secluded spot, and he assures her that he's still very much in love with her, although he hasn't actually told his wife, but he's truly just about to. So he wants to maintain the status quo, and she wants reassurance that things will change. So each has an objective. So far, so good. But we're running with his objective, because in the larger arc of the story, he gets what she wants, and she doesn't. So the female writing team decides that the scene will end with him reclining his seat and suggesting, in a few elegant words, that until they can be together properly and for real in Paris, maybe there's something she could do for him now. By the merest touch of his hand on the back of her neck and the lowering motion of the seat, he is suggesting his intent in an 8:30 friendly way. But no. At the script read-through, the producers and the network executive, I won't bang on about their gender, I think you know, they found this distasteful. They felt that it implied that the man was grasping, insensitive, and crass. Not just horny, but opportunistic and mean. In a drama, none of these things is bad, especially in a baddie, which he ultimately was, this lawyer, but still they felt that it was icky. It was something they didn't really want to see. But then one of them had a light bulb moment, a suggestion for how this might become more acceptable. I'm taking offers from the floor. Can anybody guess what the suggestion was? Hello, in the red shirt. Oh, you've got it!
God, what an amazing idea.
It's her idea. Of course it is. This little hussy, this 17-year-old pregnant minx, it's her idea. She gives him a look. She reclines the seat. At this point, the female writing team suggested, I mean, really we were explaining, but we made it sound like suggesting because we knew the rules of the game we were playing. We suggested, going back to character, that this girl right now is feeling vulnerable. She wants to know that she's cherished, that he wants their baby and their future together as much as she does. If he seizes the moment to try and get a lunchtime PJ, then it's poignant for her because she wants so much more. But if the blowjob is her idea, she's just a brassy little miss. If it's his idea, he's a bit of an opportunistic a-hole. The audience is largely female. Who do they feel for in this situation, and who do they want to feel for? The man cheating on his wife or the pregnant teenager? The writing team knew what was right for the characters and for the story and for the series. It was that the blowjob was his idea. But the producers and the network executives felt uncomfortable with that, so they popped themselves in between the female creatives and the female audience, and they made a choice that they felt good about, but it wasn't really about them. Making choices about the female character's actions and motivations based on the preferences of the male gatekeepers will inevitably reduce, simplify, and falsify your characters. Resist.
Thank you. I love that story because it is such a perfect example of false motivation, which is one of my favorite ways to fuck up your female characters, is give them a motivation that is just fake. And you see this all the time, and it's amazing. I'm privileged enough to read lots of other people's scripts, and it's amazing how often I will have to give the note, I don't understand why this female character or this character is doing this. And the doing this is invariably making a fool of herself over a man that nobody would make a fool of themselves over. It's sleeping with someone or trying to seduce someone that no one would try to seduce. It is a common question when I talk to other female writers, we find ourselves asking is, but why does she like him? Why does she want to sleep with him? Why does she want to marry him? There's no evidence that suggests this is logical, truthful behavior. So there's nothing wrong with female characters wanting to do all of those things, but it has to be believable. So what I see a lot of, and I see this in film a lot, is characters that are wandering around in the landscape just doing shit for plot reasons. And there's that, but it also, worse, and I think this is the thing we must guard against, Fiona, and I want you to guard against this.
I'll be ever vigilant,
We're ever
Kathryn.
vigilant. There's a subconscious bias that is occurring. And so unless someone actually goes, oh, hey, that seems really weird that she's doing that, because why would a woman do that? Often that question is shouted down by people that have got a subconscious bias. I think is that, and sometimes that's a woman, sometimes that's a guy. And there's also such a thing as someone projecting their fantasy and their view of how they wish reality was onto their female characters. And I see this a lot in scripts that are written by guys, and obviously not all. It's incredible, where you sit there going, but all your male characters are like these real people. All the female characters are kind of ciphers for those male characters in some way, and they're behaving in a way that no woman I've ever met behaves. Their desires are odd. Why are they doing that? It's just strange. So false motivation, embrace it, do that. That'll fuck up your characters for you. That's great. You see it a lot when you get women that are really stunning, mooning over a bloke or trying to impress a bloke that you go in real life, that just wouldn't happen. This is a fantasy. This is a projection. As I say, sometimes it's plot, sometimes it's fantasy, but this is not good writing, in my view. This is very poor writing, because you have a character that is just two-dimensional, which is not ideal. So I would like to hand over to you again, Fiona, to talk about your next point, which is related, actually.
Yes, it is somewhat related to characters who are fantasy projections rather than actual people. Here's another thing you can do. Deny your female characters an agenda. They're only there to do what the scene requires them to do or the story requires them to do. They have no life of their own, no, not even an inner life. And this is something that everyone actually does have. You all have one, I have one. We're all the main character in our own movie most of the time. But hang on, I hear you say. My film is a James Bond film. So James Bond is the main character. Obviously, he has an agenda. And the villain also has an agenda. Wouldn't it be great if the villain was female? But we'll get to that. Maybe one or two of the secondary characters have an agenda, which in some way will complicate James's agenda, but he will overcome because, hey, he's James Bond. But is it really necessary for the cocktail waitress to have an agenda? We only see her for 15 seconds. She probably doesn't even have a line. Why should she get an agenda? Answer. The scene will be more interesting if she has one. Only she may ever know it. But nonetheless, the way she steps across that room and offers James his dry martini, shaken, not stirred, will be that much snappier, that much foxier, that much more silently interesting if she has a life somewhere and plans that she is attending to. The actor playing the waitress will love you for caring about her agenda, and she'll put her whole heart and soul into delivering for you. In their minds and in their hearts, nobody is girl 1 or escort 3 or peasant woman number 18, a role I actually have played.
That was your very best work.
In an attractive Hessian corset. There was an agenda nowhere in that landscape, but they're people. Your female character is a person. Never forget that.
It's amazing the way it's all come together. Everyone's agreeing, it's really great. So one of my big bugbears is when you have female characters that are solely defined by their relationship to a male character. And
Does that happen,
it does
Kathryn?
happen. And sometimes it's even the main character. But her whole raison d'etre is about being a lover, a wife, a mother, whatever it is. It's so infuriating. And you see this all the time. I see this a lot in film, where you have a character that's got a woman who's an actress with fame and is playing a role where really her only job is to be a sounding board, either physical or verbal, for a main character, for a male character. I find it really weird. And you're sitting there watching that going, why did you take that part? And I think we all know how many actresses out there kill for great female roles. It's, people talk about it all the time. So I don't understand why there are these characters that really, they're the mother. And that's it. And which is related to what you were talking about with they have no sort of inner life that's obvious. And so maybe that ended up in a draft of the screenplay that got edited, or it ended up on the editing floor, I don't know. But you see it all the time. And I find that extraordinary. Like, your whole job is to either ask somebody, a guy, questions, like, what are we going to do now? Which I've never said, or to reflect some kind of glory, or to support them, or to make them feel better. It's quite weird. I find that really odd.
Yeah, because it actually takes so little script time to imply an agenda for a character, and it doesn't have to be right on the spine of the plot. It's spice.
Or just to imply that they actually are a person. It's just that rounding out, and it's not pages and pages and pages of dialogue necessarily. It's just this person is got a life, and as we know, there are all sorts of ways we can convey information. So this is some stuff about them. Let's have characters that aren't just the mum. In the context of the story, in the context of the relationship dynamic, what type of mum is she? I see the same mum character in films all the time.
Also, please don't call her mum. Because it's really horrible when you're an actor and you say, I just got this part in this movie, and they go, oh, who are you playing? And you go, well, I'm called Mum. This sucks.
But I mean, when you think about your own lives, you think about the variations and the nuance that you find in relationships with people of the opposite gender, you don't, as a human being, wander around going, well, that's a type of man, and that's the only type of man I know. Or that's a type of woman, it's the only type of woman I know. So I don't understand why in writing that is the case. There's many variations of the mother, is there not? There's many different contexts for that person. So I don't understand. And when I constantly see the love interest, my just hackles are like rising. That's their role. And I go, all right, sure, you need a love interest, but make that love interest have something. Make them a love interest that is of interest in this context, or that feels like a real human being. Does that make sense, or am I just being crazy?
Or you are being crazy,
Of course.
Kathryn, because my next point deals with this, absolutely. Just make her a nympho.
It's a great way to
It's
fuck up your
really
characters.
simple, because it's amazing how many nymphos are out there. Well, no, not out there in the actual world as we know it, but on TV and in the movies, every second woman you see is amazingly up for it. You know, no matter how unlikely it seems to be, no matter how unattractive her male co-star, how little sizzle actually exists between them, or the number of things that she has on her agenda, if she's got one, that is. Movie women are just very hot a lot of the time, and they need to have sex, especially in lifts with the metal grilled doors, or over the back of expensive leather furniture. Actually, they just love to be bent over anything. They're very flexible. And they love to be bent over wearing very high heels because their balance is excellent. And they love to wear underwear with no butt cover, or better yet, no underwear at all, because nothing gets in their way when they want a guy. Not the story, or his unattractiveness, or his unpleasant behaviour towards her, or as mentioned, that pesky agenda. Her uncontrollable nymphomania will cancel out all of these, and it means that she will be eager to have sex anywhere, anyhow, all of the time. And if anybody questions whether this woman actually would shag this man, all things being equal, just remind them that all things are not equal. He is the main character, and she is a nympho. End of story.
Another one of my favourite things I see when I'm reading screenplays is scripts that refer constantly to how the female characters look, and that's it. And so in the introduction, when we very first see the main character or any female character, there's just a description about how she looks, such as beautiful. And I go, really? It's sure. Sometimes there are stories where it's part of the story, and part of the ethos of the story
That she has very large breasts.
Yeah, sure.
But
she has to be really stunningly beautiful. And I'm going, cool. But perhaps here's this thing, it's called a comma. And then you have another word, which is probably an adjective, just to round it out. So, you know, just so we get a sense of, because in general, most people in film are attractive. So just so we get a sense of that this is actually a real person, you know, throw a couple of adjectives in there. After beautiful, if you have to put beautiful in. And I wish I was kidding when I tell you this story, but I read a script last year that every single female character was referenced by her breast size. And I wish I was joking, I'm really not. And I had to find, once the sort of bile had come out of my throat, I had to talk to the male writer and go, okay, so can you possibly refer to, in the nicest possible way, refer to the female characters in a way other than their bust size? I just wish I was kidding. I found it extraordinary. My eyes were just popping. I just went, what? How is this possible that people are still describing female characters in this way? And I find just this is about their appearance, equally as irritating and annoying. Beautiful, stunning, but doesn't know it. Eh? Never read that before. She's unaware of it. That's how amazing she is. She's beautiful, but she's got no idea. It's just wonderful. So that, I think it's really not difficult to add in a couple of little adjectives in the introductory paragraph in your screenplay. And I don't know why it's so difficult. I want to get a sense of who she is. Not too much to ask, I wouldn't have thought. Okay, you've talked about making her a nympho, which is, you know, easy. The other one is prostitute, always good. Prostitute with a heart of gold, a favourite.
Prostitute with damage in her backstory.
Yeah,
we will enlarge upon that.
We are going to enlarge upon that. Before we even get to that, because that's a whole other can of worms, I want to talk about characters that are really, really nice. Like female characters that are really, really nice. It's just a thing. It seems to just have dogged my entire writing career, where I've had someone go, but they're not very nice. And are they relatable because they're not very nice? And I go, well, they don't have to be. They have to be relatable. They have to be nice. And I don't know people that are like this in the world. And they're very boring to watch. Female characters that are constantly caring about fixing everybody else's problems and making sure everyone else is okay. If that's their flaw, awesome. And you're exploiting that and you take it to extreme, great. But I've just seen so many characters that are like that, where someone's going and say it's at a development executive of some sort, or it's a producer, that just makes them seem really not nice because they say that. And I went, what, like have an opinion, make a sarcastic comment, you know, have
Kathryn,
an off
that's
day.
not very likeable of you.
Well, it's, you know, it's. I don't care because it's not about me. I want the character to be relatable and interesting to watch, and flawed characters are interesting. And you see loads and loads and loads of male characters that are very flawed, and that's utterly accepted. It seems to be completely fine, and I don't know why this label of this person has to be nice seems to be turning up all the time in my career anyway. I love characters that are not. Like, there's endless TV shows with main characters like Nurse Jackie that are not nice. The lead in Bridesmaids, the film Bridesmaids, not nice. Fun to watch, and understandable, and great to watch, because you go, there's a person I can relate to. Because I don't really know anyone that wanders around in the world going, I must just be nice. That's my thing. I can't even write female characters like that, because I base my female characters on myself or people I know or things I observe, like most writers, crazy. So I don't know who these people are that are wandering around just being super nice. Who are they?
Well, I could describe a shortcut
Yes?
whereby you might be able to write one like this.
Oh, go on then, help me.
You've obviously tried and failed.
I have.
To write these likeable women.
Yes.
This one is gold. Remove her capacity for independent thought.
That would do it.
Oh, that'll do it, because it makes your female character ask a lot of handy questions. What can we do? Where are we going? And my personal favorite, what's going to happen?
Because you know, because you're a bloke, right? And you're
This.
amazingly psychic. All good.
Yeah, this will enable the male character, who is endowed with resourcefulness, imagination, and the ability to see around corners, to explain to this female character and to those dimmer bulbs in the audience that can't handle a little suspense or letting the story unfold and they like to have everything explained to them. The female character, who also needs to have the plot explained, is a very handy tool to have in your toolkit here. However, while she is asking other people, usually men, what's going to happen, she is not able to come up with any ideas of her own. She is not able to solve any problems or outsmart anybody or formulate plan B, C, or D, or drive the getaway car, or actually do anything useful because she's too busy asking questions. Asking questions is a really good way to get somebody else to do most of the talking, which is probably why a magazine that I used to love recommended it as an excellent technique for use on dates with tongue-tied teenage boys. This is when I was a teenager myself. They would say, ask him leading questions about his hobbies. And even then I knew that it was really bad advice, because I thought, but then he'll talk about them for hours. He will tell me a lot more about cars or soccer or stamp collecting, which was an actual thing back then, or heavy metal or some insanely boring other thing that any normal person would never want to know about. He'll tell me, and he'll just keep going because he'll assume that I'm interested because I asked him. So, no thank you, Jackie magazine, I thought. I reject that advice. So be very wary of the movie dialogue equivalent, whereby your female character knows nothing, your male character magically knows everything, and she asks him a lot of questions, and he answers them. This will not result in a dynamic scene between two interesting characters. It will result in word ping-pong between a human and a doormat. Avoid this.
Harsh. I also have some advice for you. Don't create a character that's over 30. Don't. Just don't do it. Because a character that's over 30, a female character that's over 30, don't create them. Because nobody wants to see that, evidently.
Especially not in digital. It's ooh.
This is something that I have come across again and again and again, and invariably it's come from, certainly not from people I've been writing with, but it's come from the next step up, so it's been either network folk or producer perhaps, and it has always been so infuriating to me that I go, well, I never personally see myself, I very rarely see myself on screen, and we were talking about this the other day, and I go, that is just so weird. So if you create somebody that is over 30 as a character, this is what has happened to me in the past, and I've really had to fight to keep them the age they actually are. So I wrote a play a while ago, and I had a producer approach me about adapting it for a film. And he said straight away out of the bat, you'll have to age her down. And I leaned in and went, why? And he didn't really answer that, but the character was 45 years old. Can you imagine? Shocking. And oh my Lord, who wants to look at that? So I went, but in the context of the story, it's a romantic comedy about romantic comedies. And both of the main characters are in their 40s. And as you will appreciate, people in their 40s that are single are somewhat different than people that are 30 and they're singles, because you're running out of time. And I went, this is what this is about. This is the whole comedy. And he went, no, needs to age it down. And I knew that meant if she's aged down to 35, they're going to cast 30. So I went, right, so you're going to have a beautiful young woman in this role playing against a guy who's 45, and it's not going to be funny, and it's not going to work. It's going to be about, for some reason, some desperate, beautiful 30-year-old who's considering hooking up with some rumpty 45-year-old bloke.
It's 'cause her clock's ticking, Kathryn.
Oh, I see. Right. So, but that is the whole, you don't want to have varied, interesting, unique, well-rounded female characters. Just make sure they're all 30 or under. Just do that. Because if you don't, somebody will absolutely go, hey, we should age them down.
Yeah, and this lie about age, it really does feed back to motivation. I've got a quick example from a series I was involved with a few years ago where the main female character was 50. She was conceived as 50. So I'm not afraid to use the word desperate when it comes to her. She was a career woman with 2 children, but she could feel that her time in the zone of female viability, physical desirability, she could feel that it was rapidly running out. This is just true. She had a very short time to achieve the things that she wanted to achieve, and her desperation made her ruthless. If she really is 50, then you can understand that about her. It's not pretty, but it's real. A network executive did not want her to be 50. He passionately did not want her to be 50. Again, he didn't explain why, but he refused to cast the, by the way, very attractive actress who was desperate for the role and who the producers wanted to cast. He insisted that another actress be cast who was gorgeous, extremely talented, but 35. So because we're writers, we looked at this character's backstory, like when and where she had her children, for example, at what point in her life journey, when she had done the training for this high-powered career that she had, and we thought, it doesn't fit. It's crunched into too few years. Also, she's not the kind of woman who would have become a teen mum, maybe once by accident, no way twice. To paraphrase Oscar Wilde, that just looks like carelessness. And she wasn't carelessness because she was hungry to have a career. So by making this decision based on physical attractiveness, he had really made a lie of the life story of this fictional character and taken the guts out of one of the themes of the series. So it sounds on the surface maybe like a small thing, but when you think like writers and you've got all the archaeological layers of your character, it's not a small thing. It's crucial, so it's important not to lie.
Thank you. That is great. I think we've only got time for probably 2 more little points, so I'm going to jump immediately to a really thorny one, which is if you want to fuck up your female characters, use rape or sexual abuse as a shortcut for character. Look at my face. I just can't think of numerous male characters where that's their backstory because that gives them character. I'm sure they exist, but it's not common. But in her past, she's been raped or sexually abused is a really common shortcut for that's why she's got some character, which I find weird.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. It's only just occurred to me now. But considering how many fascinating and troubled male characters we see, how seldom rape and sexual abuse is the reason for that. It's almost no-go. And anything that's no-go is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to you.
Thank you. Vaguely related to that, and this is kind of, I can't even bring myself to actually say do this even though we're joking. I just can't even bring myself to say it. But I've also got a real issue with the fact that at the other end of, we're talking about age and middle age and older women, at the other end of the spectrum is have your young teenage girls be really sexualized. I just struggle with that so much because I think it's not edgy, it's just bizarre how many of those characters are out there. Have you guys seen those characters? They're everywhere, where it's the young, promiscuous, sexualized teenage girl, and you just go,
She's unaware
wow.
of her latent power, by the way.
But certainly someone
She's a child.
So, yeah, but it's really common, and it's almost as. I mean, I was working on a. Oh God, it was infuriating. I was working on a show which was a dramedy, like a primetime dramedy, and there was a 15-year-old character in it. It was not about her; it was about her mother and her mother's best friend, and there was just this really subtle pressure constantly when we were in production to sex her up. And the other female writer and I were going, she's 15. Can't she just be a kid? Can't she just be a grotty, stupid teenager? Why does she have to be sexy? Why does she have to look like a fashion plate? She's 15. I know it will be hard to believe, but when I was 15, I did not look like a fashion plate. Hard to believe, I know. But it's like, why can't this person just be a child? But that sexualization of girls seems relentless to me, and I see it all the time, and it makes me, every time I see a film in a festival that is about that area, I just go, oh God, really? That again, that character again. Do we have to see that? Anyway, maybe it's just me, I don't know.
No, it's not just you, because I'm going to take this one to its logical conclusion, which is, ask yourself a question about your female character. Is she really a sexy lamp? Because once you have listened to the gatekeepers, denied your female character an agenda, removed her capacity for independent thought, and made her a nympho, you have arrived at her true and ultimate purpose. She's a sexy lamp. She looks great. She looks expensive. She will enhance the lighting and production design. She won't do or say anything annoying or interesting or puzzling or intriguing. She will only ever go where you put her. She will lend an air of classiness, a certain luxe or glamour, but she will not obtrude on the story significantly or ever require the audience's undivided attention, because after all, she's just a lamp. She won't upstage the hero or foil the villain or crack any jokes or fart or think or feel or have inconvenient emotions. She won't age. She won't argue. She won't take the law or the story into her own hands. She's essentially an item of furniture, and it goes without saying that the story's not about her. Or, here's the take home, you can flagrantly disobey all of these tips. You can endow your female characters with agendas, with independent thought, with a discriminating sex drive, and a genuine inner life that drives their actions, their behavior, and their motivations, so that they do actually want things and do things in order to achieve what they want, and they don't let their wants and needs be ignored or conveniently cast aside because somebody else's are more important. And you can fight for these female characters when the gatekeepers try to diminish them and confuse them and silence them, because you know that your female audience wants to see them and needs to see them in all their full complexity and humanity and wonder. And then, and only then, you let the art department come in and place, just so, their sexy lamp, because we all love a sexy lamp, but we love a woman more.
Thank you.